Hello everyone and welcome back to Age of Nagash, which is a channel dedicated to Age of Sigmar, and in this video it's going to be my long awaited Beasts of Chaos lore video. So this is a video that I decided to put a bit more effort into sort of like note preparation, as I don't really tend to write notes for my videos. However, for this video it's close to about 4,000 words of notes. So hopefully it will give it a bit more love towards the Beasts of Chaos, because when I look at them on YouTube, bar a couple of YouTubers, I don't find too much for them in terms of lore. So please, if you watch this video, let me know down below if you thought this video was a bit better structured compared to some of my other videos, as it should have a better flow to it rather than lots of rambling. So please let me know, that would be great. Right, so firstly, let us go into the Beasts of Chaos lore. So firstly, the Beasts of Chaos, they are the beastmen from the world that was. They're the same models, their ideology it's the same bar a few tweaks, and in the world that was, there were things like the Bane of the Wood Elves, the Bane of the Empire, and pretty much most civilized races. So that is pretty much, if you knew Warhammer Fantasy, and you can see them there, recognise them. But if you're completely new to Age of Sigmar, what are the Beasts of Chaos? Of course, you'll be able to see pictures as I'm explaining this. But essentially, the biggest way I can sort of compare them to our sort of real life is things like satanic beliefs, also things like Greek mythology. So we've got things like Minotaurs, we've got kind of Cyclopses and Cygors, we've got Centaurs, which are basically centaurs. We have goat people, fawns. It's all very you can see where they get the inspiration from. And then when I say satanic, it's from their sort of deep worship of chaos as a whole. So within this wide bracket army of mixture races of the Beasts of Chaos, we can break it down into a few main sort of like sub-factions. So this is going to be the Bray Herd. Now the Bray Herd tend to be the smaller of the Beasts of Chaos, so they're not the like brutish Bulgur Minotaurs or the Cygors or the Gorgons or anything like that. Instead, these guys are the most intelligent of all the Beasts of Chaos. Now, when I say intelligent, that's kind of bringing that word into the dirt and mud, but it's more of an animal cunning. And because of this, this is what makes them unparalleled at ambushing and all the Beasts of Chaos. So they may not be as brutal as some of the other ones, but they use their wits a bit more, or more capable of doing so. So the next one we have is the War Herd. Now you may have heard me say a few examples there of them. So they are, like I said, the Bulgurs. You've got your Gorgons, you've got your Cygor, you've got your Doombull. That's pretty much what makes up the War Herd. And they essentially excel at brutal head-on offensives. They're not as ambushing as the Bray Herd. They're not as sneaky, anything like that. They are just straight up smack the enemy in the face with a huge axe or a big boulder or slashing clawed arms. Pretty straightforward guys. Next we have the Thunder Scorn. Now these ones are pretty interesting as they conduct devastating lightning warfare attacks. So they are kind of similar to the War Herd, as they're pretty brutal, pretty big. But they also use lightning in forms, can be like magic, but it's just their sort of connection to storm. So we then move on to something a little bit more interesting, and this is going to be Tzaangors. So Tzaangors are traditionally from Tzeentch, where if you already play the game or you're aware of Tzeentch, you'll probably know this. They are very simple beastmen who are either dedicated to Tzeentch, already like mortal followers of Tzeentch, but they've been mutated into sort of bestial forms. And then after that, really all we have left in the factions for the Beasts of Chaos are the monsters. So this is going to be, insidious, gigantic, frenzied beasts who lash out with claws, teeth, all sort of warped deformities at their enemies. And that is a short summary of the factions within the Beasts of Chaos Allegiance. Now, I will go more into detail with each of those when I review them in further videos as this Beasts of Chaos Army series, so don't worry about that. We'll touch more lore there. Okay, so to talk about the Beasts of Chaos and also sort of, explain them a little bit further, they inhabit all of the realms. You may be thinking like, oh, they're just, sort of tied to the realm of beasts. No, they're absolutely everywhere. realm of fire, realm of death, realm of life, realm of light, realm of shadow, realm of beasts, obviously, and so on, so on. So they inhabit all these realms, but also it's not just they live there, they're also kind of a part of that realm, or they can see in their physical appearance that that is the realm they originate from. So for some examples of this, so you'll have, if you're from Ashi, so you know the realm of fire, some of their fur will be sort of like this elemental fire. You also get some beastmen who have got metal scales, as they're from the realm of metal, or shaman. Also, if they're from like the realm of light, they could have sort of like crystal glass horns. Or some who are even from the realm of shadow have like dark smoke manes. And then you have some from Gairan, to the realm of life, who instead of having normal hair as beards, they will have like beard that's made out of like knotted roots and everything like that, so reflecting that realm. Also, an interesting thing about the beasts of chaos that come from different realms, they also act like beasts of those realms. For example, so beasts of chaos from Shaisha, the realm of death, strip their prey of all flesh, just like the beasts of that realm. Because remember that these are beasts from the realm. Yes, they've been warped and shaped by chaos, but they are still beasts from that realm they come from, so they will share the same animal instincts as the other beasts of that realm. So another thing to say about the beasts of chaos that really does show how they can be different depending on their habitat. Because you may be looking at, I don't know, a box of like ongors or gors or bulgors. You may be thinking this is what they look like. There's no exceptions. This is what they all look like. Doesn't matter where they are from. However, if you're a bit of a converter, this gives you great opportunity to really feel creative in kit bashing, modeling, really however you want your beasts to look like. And as you can see on the screen now, we have some conversions up, and this is done by a good Warhammer buddy of mine, and I'll have a link to his Instagram, which is Trash Panda Project, in the description below, so you can go and follow him for sure to see all of his work that he is doing. So as you can see from all these pictures, you may be thinking, well, how does that work? Why is there a shark one? That's because some of the beasts of chaos live underwater and have interactions, not pleasant interactions, but interactions with the Idoneth Deep King, for example. We also have ones, as we can see, there's things like Bulgors, but instead they've got the head of an eagle, or they've got a head of a lion. It really, you can go as creative as you want, and it doesn't have to be Bulgors. You can really do whatever you want. I've seen people take a Scarbrand model and turn that into a Cygor. You can really go crazy, and it really helps build the sort of backstory behind your own army, depending on how you want to do it. So I think that is a pretty cool thing you can do, and I think Simon's done some perfect examples here, and it really does show that these guys do live in all habitats. They don't all have to be on dry land. In fact, some of them actually live in the skies, as we'll see later when we look at some certain points of history when that's been discovered. So now that I've explained what the Beasts of Chaos are physically, I want to talk a little bit of what makes them who they are before we go into their history. So essentially, they hate all civilization. They see it as unnatural. It goes against nature. It goes against, the wilderness. They also do not worship any chaos gods, as they worship chaos as a whole, bar a few exceptions that we'll get to later. And their ultimate goal is to merge the realm of chaos with the mortal realms, creating this one warping bestial plane of existence. And the only other thing I want to say before we go into the history is that these feral warriors fight in herds that form beast herds, which in turn make up great phrase, which consists of countless beasts and are as old as the realm themselves. So I just wanted to essentially go a little bit into what makes them who they are, and we'll go further into that later. But I wanted to say this just before we go into the history, so you guys have that bit of understanding to make the history sort of flow that a little bit easier as I'm about to explain it to you now. So with their history, they were the first, quite simply. So they were here before Sigmar, and the first ancient primitive people actually draw cave paintings of these beasts, as the beasts of chaos are the representation of their most primal fears. They are the things that lurk in the darkness, the things that will get you if you lead, the safety of your tribe. They are the things that do the raids. They are the things that take the children in the night. They're all these sort of superstitious fears. Okay, so The next thing I want to do is go into the three main theories behind how did these Beasts of Chaos come into being, because it's a little bit like, what came first, chicken the egg, as a sense of they were there first, what created them, how did life evolve, without going too much into religion. Okay, so the first thing we have is the legend of the Alpha Progenitor, which is one such theory that comes from the sprawling tusk glyphs that are within the prowling valley of Gur, in that when the winds of chaos swept through the valley, reality ripped and birthed forth the first beasts of chaos, known as the Alpha Progenitor. From what can be told from the glyphs, this beast was enormous and could well have been a god beast. The theory then goes on to suggest that every twisted chaos beast descended from it and formed the first great phrase. To this day, many beasts of chaos worship the Alpha Progenitor and erect colossal herdstones in the prowling valleys, and when they worship, make sacrifices to the monuments, future generations are birthed forth. No one knows what happened to the Alpha Progenitor, as many of the tusks that tell the story have been shattered and their glyphs lost with them. Perhaps it returned to the dimension from which it came, or perhaps it died, as surely nothing that old can still be alive. However, the people who still live in the prowling valleys report sightings of the beasts, and entire tribes have gone missing. No one can say for sure if it's gone or not. Okay, so that is the legend of the Alpha Progenitor, which is the first theory. Now the second theory is going to be the fable of the warping winds. So this theory suggests that long ago, before Sigmar was awakened, the beasts of chaos were once like normal people from ancient civilization who were trying to make sense of the meaning of their existence and to have a god to follow. However, even at this predated time in the mortal realms, the corruption of chaos ever so slowly bled into the realms and twisted the minds of some people from different tribes to make them love and crave anarchy. As well as these mental changes, these chosen people also developed magical powers. These first corrupted souls were even turned upon by their kin, which resulted in their death or exile. However, even some tribes made the mistake of not dealing the problem of this new threat at the start and let the corrupted ones stay. Nevertheless, either exiled or not, over time the first corrupted ones managed to twist the minds of their kin, and together their bodies started to warp and mutate into bestial forms and became the first beasts of chaos. There are also much more recent tales from the Age of Chaos, where entire populace of kingdoms would flee into the wilds to escape the legions of the dark gods, only years later then to return to their old kingdom. However, now they are nothing more than bestial creatures on a path of corruption and destruction. So that is the second theory, which is the fable of the warping wilds. So the third theory is going to be a lot shorter. I've done my write-up on it because I didn't really feel like it made too much sense, but I will go with it nonetheless. And that is, I'm going to pronounce this wrong for sure, Cuparis Chaotica Postulate, if that made any sense. Right, okay, so what I writ is, this is the belief that the reason for the Beasts of Chaos existence is because they are the embodification of chaos, making them the parallel to natural order of the mortal realms. So essentially what this one says is, because there are, natural things in the realms, and there's things like order and civilization, that there has to be a parallel to it. I just find this more of a generalization compared to the other two theories for sure. That's just my thoughts on it. I think if I had to pick my favourite out of the three, there's two that I like I say, and then my favourite is probably going to be the fable of the warping wilds, because although the legend of the Alpha Progenitor sounds really cool, this massive beast, I quite like the subtlety of the fable of the warping wilds. I just think it adds a little bit. You can see how like chaos seeps in, rather than just being like splitting reality and a massive beast comes forth and sort of, I don't know, like the alien out of Cloverfield just drops like little aliens of it, and then that's how the beasts of chaos are formed. I like the idea of the slow corruption of chaos rather than just being, you know, a big bang essentially. But I think both of them are cool. But that's, like I say, that's just my honest thoughts and my favourite really of the theories. I do think it's cool that you've got the theories, and I think something that's great with the Beasts of Chaos lore is it really sort of fleshes out the mortal realms. As the Cities of Sigmar battle tome, I think does a great job of showing, you know, where we are now in the realms. But the Beasts of Chaos one does a really good job of showing its, you know, primitive history, as well as fleshing out the Beasts of Chaos lore as well. Yeah, so I think the theories are a nice little touch. So to end the topic on, you know, the theories of how the Beasts of Chaos were created, something that we do know as certain as we can be, they were not created by the Chaos Gods themselves. However, it is possible that through the Beasts of Chaos slaughter in, you know, the Age of Myth and even before that, like I say, a more primitive history, that the Beasts of Chaos actually ripped open tears into the realm of chaos, which attracted the attention of the Dark Gods themselves to the mortal realms. So they had a part to play there by opening up the mortal realms to chaos, either directly or indirectly, and I think more indirectly with this one. Okay, so what I want to do now is, now that we've talked, you know, what the Beasts of Chaos are, you know, a little bit about their motive, we've also gone into, you know, like where they came. I want to now go into look at like the Age of Myth, the Age of Chaos, and the Age of Sigmar, where we are now, and talk about points of interest that happen in each one of those ages. Okay, so firstly, to start with the Age of Myth. So this is when Sigmar first awakened, and quite frankly, the Beasts of Chaos were Sigmar's first enemies in the realms. The forces of order united to defeat the Beasts of Chaos, and the sort of, like I said, a grip of fear that the Beasts of Chaos had on the mortals of the mortal realms. So what Sigmar did is he united those mortals and formed, you know, the forces of order and defeated the Beasts of Chaos. However, the most important thing to remember here is that they did not destroy the Beasts of Chaos. The Beasts of Chaos actually retreated to the most sort of savage and darkest wilderness of the realms. You know, there the Beasts of Chaos awaited, abiding their time for centuries. They lived in a bitterness, and their fetid fury only grew as they were only able to do rare raiding as to make sure they did not discover. So they essentially, you know, living for scraps, not being this, you know, might makes right, you know, a race, this powerful, you know, fear what they once had on the mortal realms. They were now just something that had to purely lurk in the far wilderness, and they would have to continue this until eventually that day would come when the influences and forces of the Dark Gods would finally break into the mortal realms. So looking at a few, like I say, points of interest, we've got the Purge in the Heavens, which is in Azir, which we commonly associate as, you know, the realm of order. This is, you know, like the safest place. It is Sigmar's domain. But the important thing to mention here is that it was actually home to the Thunder Scorn as well. And they sensed Sigmar's unnatural order, and war between the God King and the Dragon Ogres, which I say form the Thunder Scorn, break out. Unfortunately, though, for the Thunder Scorn, Sigmar is eventually victorious, and the Thunder Scorn are banished from Azir. So essentially, it was their home first. The Thunder Scorn were there first, but Sigmar comes there, kicks them out, and takes it for himself. So I think kind of a bit of a dick move there on Sigmar, if I'm honest. Right, so the next bit, we've got Civilization encroaches. So the God King Sigmar expands his order across the mortal realms, uniting scattered tribes of humans, elves, and dwarves, whilst ethnic cleansing the beasts of chaos he comes across. So essentially, you can probably tell I'm not a massive fan of Sigmar, but, you know, the beasts of chaos were there. They're trying to live their lives. They're trying to do the odd, you know, murdering and child abduction and everything else, and then suddenly, you know, this prick comes down from the skies and really just ruins their fun. So Essentially, this is just the takeover of the forces of order, sort of, bringing light, as it were, and probably enlightenment is a better word, to the mortal realms, and, trying to show the worst is behind us. Now this is going to be a time of a greatness, now that we're not living in fear. So another story is going to be the first son of the Gaul father. Now, this is when Sigmar sent the twin god of destruction Gorkamorka to the savage plains of Gur, the realm of beasts, to destroy the beasts of chaos that dwell there. There takes place is a mighty battle between Gorkamorka and the mighty beast lord who calls himself the Gorfather. Although Gorkamorka wins this fight, the Gorfather actually manages to put up a pretty impressive attempt at taking down a god, even the god of destruction. Okay, so that is the Age of Myth, then going on to the Age of Chaos. Essentially the Age of Chaos, so as the Age of Chaos begun, the Beasts of Chaos used this as an opportunity to strike out their caged rage upon the civilized inhabitants of the realms. Joining the demonic and mortal followers of Chaos, they slaughter and tore the pillars of civilization down. This will continue for centuries until the day Sigmar unleashed his Stormcast Eternals and the Age of Sigmar would begin. However, in the Age of Chaos, the first point is the Fury Unleashed. This is the Chaos Gods extend their reach into the mortal realms, committing mass genocide to the inhabitants of the realms by force of demon and mortal legions. Although the Beasts of Chaos would fight the demon and mortals, the Chaos Gods, they use this beginning of the Age of Chaos to at long last come out of the wild places and seek their savage revenge on Sigmar. The next tale is called The Slaughter in the Skies. In the Age of Chaos, the civilization of the realms had two choices: die or flee. In the realm of metal, the Dwarden Karak Orfgraf escaped legions of Zeech that besieged their mighty mountain stronghold by constructing an even mightier sky vessel. They escape and fly high into the coppery clouds. However, all other surviving Dwarden lose contact with Karak Orfgraf until an escape vessel finds its way to an established skyport containing 3 survivors belonging to Karak Orfgraf. They inform their kin that they were attacked by beasts that lurk in the coppery skies, and it was those beasts of chaos that slaughtered all other members of their sky vessel. They tell the other Dwarden this as a warning. However, when the survivors tell their kin of the sheer amount of ether gold that the beast herds were guarding, greed takes priority over life. The next tale is of the Wandering War. As chaos takes hold of Gairan, the Wanderers retreat from the realm of life. However, they are followed by the great fray known as the Dark Walkers. The Wanderers are experts of realm navigation and use this to travel from realm to realm to lose any would-be pursuers. However, no matter where or how far the Wanderers retreat to, the Dark Walkers are always just moments behind them. The Wanderers have lost countless lives to the Dark Walkers over the chase of prey and hunter. The Wanderers then split up what was left of their race in hope of being able to eventually shake off these predators that are the reason why they can never rest. So I quite like this story here. It reminds me of one of the episodes in the Witcher Netflix TV show where you have that sorcerer who keeps on chasing Yennefer through the different parts of the continent by creating wormholes and stuff. I think it's quite good. It's just like, you're always on your feet, you can never rest, you can never let your guard down. And remember, like, the Wanderers are still around with us today. So, like, the Wanderers have been having to escape from these people for a very, very long time. When I mean people, I mean horrific beasts. Okay, so the next one is the Massacre on the Mantle coast. So it is in the Everspring, the Sylvaneth defend against the beast herds dedicated to Nurgle known as Rotfreys. Although the Sylvaneth fight furiously to slaughter the Rotfrey, as the greater and stronger corrupting decay of Nurgle spreads, turning vibrant groves to cesspits mulch, the weaker the fierce of the Sylvaneth defence becomes. This is when aid to the Sylvaneth finally comes from the Idoneth Deep King of the Mantle coast. The Deep King halts the Rotfrey's advance, however the advantage to order is short-lived and paid for with many Deepkin bodies that return mangled to the sea from whence they came. With this, the Rotfreys are victorious. So that is the last story from the Age of Chaos. Now we're going to go into the Age of Sigmar. Expect a lot of pro-Stormcast narrative, you have been warned. Okay, so the Age of Sigmar. So the Stormcast Eternals was the first challenging resistance to the Beasts of Chaos had come across since the Age of Chaos had begun. Although this may appear to be a strong negative for the Beasts of Chaos, on the contrary, they now had the embodimentation of what fueled their hatred, which they could slaughter either by axe or horns, and they would make sure that no son of Sigmar would be allowed to exist in their mortal realms. So the next story is called The Dirge Horn Resounds. In Gairan, the Stormcast of the Hallowed Knights and the Astral Templars search for the goddess of life, Alariel, the Everqueen, so that she can rejoin Sigmar's pantheon. In the Stormcast strike into the heart of the Rotwater Blight, where the Beast Lord known as a Gluhak is waiting for them and sounds the dirge horn, which is a revolting instrument that spreads a sickening sound across all of Rotwater Blight. This has the effect of filling the Stormcast warriors with despair, whilst also surrounding the entirety of the Nurgle Beasts of Chaos forces to fight the invading storm hosts. The Stormcast, after sustaining countless casualties, eventually arrive at the location of the Dirge Horn. Amongst the ongoing battle, a decimated Prime makes a desperate attempt to end the battle by cutting the head off the beast, and throws his axe at the Beast Lord. The Beast Lord is struck down and crashes into the Dirge Horn. With such force he shatters the horn, and its pestilent energies dissipate back into the wild. The next story is the blood-soaked Archipelago. The Stormcast from the Tempest Lord storm hosts were dispatched to the Toro Archipelago to find and gather the devoted to Sigmar known as the Candlemen, to fight the hordes of chaos. Once the Tempest Lords have gathered this force, they are set upon by a cornate war herd. These monstrosities wreck through the mortal and Stormcast soldiers. In the midst of this bloody battle, the forces of Sigmar are surely going to be slaughtered to the last. However, there is a sudden deafening boom across the battlefield. This sound hits the battlefield like a shockwave of unbelievable fury, to the point that the beasts of the war herd simply cannot contain their anger and explode in a shower of gore, bones and blood. The forces of Sigmar shout prayers to their god for his protection. However, they will soon find out that it was not the saving grace of their god who created the sound, but instead the greater demon known as Scarbrand. The next story is named The Rat Trap. So I wonder what armies are going to be featured in this one. So Zeech serving Thunder Scorn beast herds batter their way through a Fire Slayer magma hold deep within the Dontus Mountains. The Fire Slayers are slaughtered to the last through warping acts of mutation. However, as soon as the once citizens of the Magma Hold are defeated, swarms of Skaven from Clan Moulder rise up from the depths of the mountain to kill the Thunder Scorn and take the Magma Hold for themselves. Surprising to the Skaven, the Thunder Scorn retreat to the outside of the mountain. Now, the Skaven, not being the most heroic race, rejoice in this easy victory. However, their joys soon turn to dread as the Dragon Ogres have used their lightning gifts to strike the mountain with mutating lightning of Zeech, which turns the great caverns within the mountain into maws that devour the Skaven whole. The next tale is called The Howl of the Dead Beasts. As the Necroquake released uncontrollable necromantic energy, raising the geist of the mortal realms to strike out at the living, the beasts of chaos who revel in mayhem follow after the murdering Nighthaunt, destroying any sign of civilization that remains. The beasts of chaos also use this opportunity to strike at the storm vaults now that their protective magical barriers have dissipated. Then finally we have the Fell Migration, with the spectral dead roaming the realms and magic seething throughout the lands. The great phrase descend upon Shaiish. The seers in Azir, with dread suspicion, suspect the beasts of chaos are en route in such a mass to Nadrir to turn Nagash's Black Pyramid into the center point herdstone of the realms. So now that we've talked about the beasts of chaos, their origin and their history and what makes up their ranks, I want to now tell you guys about the Great Phrase. So remember I mentioned at the start, it's how the beasts of chaos form these massive hunting parties or just essentially are connected to each other. So Great Phrase can consist of thousands or even millions of bestial warriors, comparing them to great empires. It is impossible to say how many Great Phrase there are. Great Phrase do not typically group all together as one ocean of a horde, but instead are split into beast herds which are dotted all over the realms. They connect to each other via corrupted realm gates found deep in the wilds. The Great Phrase can consist of every type of beasts of chaos. They are not always exclusive to Bray Herd or War Herd or Thunder Scorn, etc. They essentially accept all. Each beast of the Great Fray is bound together in a single purpose of anarchy, dedicated by the most savage beasts of the Great Fray known as the Alpha Beast. A Great Fray's domain is marked by their unique herdstone, which spreads its foul influence. This in turn shapes all the beasts within the boundaries to look similar, be it by skin or fur colour and markings upon their bodies. On the occasions when an entire Great Fray will go on the warpath as one force, entire realms can tremble under their cloven and monstrous feet. The standing of each beast herd in a Great Fray is dictated by their savage and their destructive and bloody history. If any beast herd appears to be weakening, another more ferocious beast herd will take over their domain. As if a beast herd is unquestionably savage and bloodthirsty, a Great Fray will welcome it to join them, despite any other heretical acts such as devoting yourself to one of the Chaos Gods. So now that we know what the Great Frays are, what I'm going to do is go over the three main Great Frays we have, and then we're also going to talk about the Great Frays that dedicate themselves to certain Chaos Gods. Now, what I'm going to do is I'll just do sort of like a summary of each one, and then maybe in a later video I can go more in depth about each Great Fray, like I'm going to do with the different, sub-races of the Beasts of Chaos, if that's what you guys would like. Okay, so the first one we are going to take a look at is going to be the All Herd. So since the Beasts of Chaos first began to gather in number, there has been no great fray as large or as sprawling as the Yule Herd, ruling over more wild territories than every other bestial tribe combined. The Yule Herd is known in civilized empires, spectral kingdoms, and green-skinned war clans by various names, such as the Anarchine, the Ever Beasts, the Brood of the Gore Father, wonder which one that came from, and many more. Yet, whatever they are called, their hunger for slaughter is unmistakable. Okay, so that is the Yule Herd. Like I said, just do a summary. So moving on to the second, which is going to be the Dark Walkers. An eerie hush descends over the land, pierced only by the creaking of ancient trees. Carrion birds cease their crowing, and chittering insects fall silent. In this void of sound, soldiers can hear their own heartbeats beating, their blood pulsing faster as fear sinks its cold talons into their souls. An armoured warrior sees something move at the corner of his vision, but it is gone by the time he turns his head. Another hears a trumpet blast so otherworldly that she cannot be sure her mind is not playing tricks on her. Then scores of glowing eyes open as one, peering out from the gloom of the woods to look hungrily upon their surrounded prey. So we can see there already, like, we compare the Dark Walkers to the Yule Herd. The Yule Herd is like the big, powerful, massive one, sort of, you see it as it is. But the Dark Walkers, although they don't have the same numbers as the Yule Herd, they are a lot more sort of, I want to say sort of tactical, sneaky, but they are very much against organisation. But essentially what it is, very cunning in using their numbers effectively to be able to ambush their opponents, and that's something you can see in their rules as well. Okay, so the next one is going to be the Gavespawn. This is going to be the last of the three main Great Frays, and like I've mentioned before, you can make up your own Great Fray. It's not saying these are the only three, but these are the three main ones they pick up in the book. Okay, so for the Gavespawn, in body and mind there are no beasts of chaos more warped than those of the Gavespawn. As the creatures of this Great Fray stampede into battle, hunched over to run on all fours or skittering sideways along tongue-flapped form their gaping maws, and their clawed limbs contort into twisted configurations. The braying call of the beastman rises to a soul-piercing shriek, while the booming roars of bull-gauls, dragon ogres, and towering monstrosities drawn out all other thoughts and fill minds with nightmarish visions. Falling upon their prey, the beasts begin to lash out erratically, carving flesh and bone with each anic sweep of their blades and claws. With unabating ferocity, the creatures continue to tear into their foes, and the horror of facing such savagery is enough to snap the sanity of many mortal warriors. Okay, so that's the Gavespawn. So essentially we have, those three main ones. Like I say, you can come up with your own, but they are the three that you can take sub-allegiances from their battle tome. So now moving on to more god-specific ones. So they're going to be four, of course, with the four main chaos gods. Now we have got Skull Phrase, which you may have guessed is for Khorne. We have then got Twist Phrase, which again you may have guessed is Tzeentch. Then you've got Rot Phrase, which is for Nurgle. And then you've got Slake Phrase, which is for Slaanesh. So firstly, looking at the Skull Phrase. So those beasts of chaos that worship Khorne are gifted a portion of the blood god's undying rage and unquenchable thirst for murder. They see the shattering of cities and tearing down of idols as distractions to the indulged in only after the lands have been drowned in gore and crimson rain pours from the skies. With every bloody battle, their bestial instincts are further honed, their lust for killing sharpened like a blade in one of their patrons' great forges. Gone is the desire for rampant anarchy, for Khorne shows them that through disciplined warfare and martial prowess, the entirety of the mortal realms can be transformed into a slaughterhouse. So yes, very much Khornate there, and like I've sort of mentioned already, how the Beasts of Chaos really do worship Chaos as a whole, and the whole anarchy aspect. Khorne is basically saying to them, yeah, don't worry about that. This is a much way better to live your life, and I imagine we're going to see something like that very similar with the other gods. So moving on to Tzeentch's twist phrase. Known as Weird Horns, Warp Hooves, or Flesh Changers, the Beasts of Chaos that worship Tzeentch are drawn from the wilds by the scent of magic. They seek not only to rend flesh and spill of blood, but to defile the enchantments wrought by the other races. They view their dark god as the beast with many forms, the reshaper of the realms, who devours flesh, magic, and fate before regurgitating them in forms more pleasing to the true children of chaos. So this Tzeentch very much plays on, as we can imagine, the whole warping of the realms, and that's, remember, like I said at the start of this video, that is what the Beasts of Chaos are going for, making the realm of chaos and the mortal realms one in this mutating, plane of a bestial nature. So that you can see why some Beasts of Chaos are drawn to Tzeentch in there. And then the next one we're going to look at is going to be Nurgle's one, which is going to be Rotphrase. So before Nurgle worshipping beasts of the Rotphrase are within range to strike with their blades, their putrid stench has already neutered the ranks of their enemies. Roaring animal mouths revel fangs ridden with decay, and from muscled limb hangs dense clusters of boils and putrid traumas. In their filth-encrusted manes crawl all manner of pests and parasites, not only a blood mite and scab spiders, but also a plump demonic slugs and pox-carrying bile flies. These flocculent herds are the bringers of disease and the harbingers of woe to the mortal realms. And then the next one we're going to have a look at is, of course, the last one, which is Slaanesh. So the Slake phrase. The savage barnacles of Slaanesh, worshipping beasts of chaos, are without equal in the wilds, festering and fighting to indulge their every desire. The heretical creatures become steadily more frenzied until their hunger for mayhem can no longer be contained. They then stampede towards the nearest city, announcing their coming with shrill blasts of their bray horns, and launch themselves at the first enemies they see, brutalizing their prey in rapturous state of frenzy. Okay, so that's the four gods. So essentially, I can almost tell the story of saying that, oh, well, they're taking the Beasts of Chaos away from their initial purpose and everything like that, and they're trying to make them do things that aren't natural to the Beasts of Chaos. But really, just each of the Chaos gods just plays on a trait on the beliefs of the Beasts of Chaos. For example, we look at Khorne, the Skull phrase. They very much revel in the bloodlust of battle and anarchy. The Twist phrase are all about the natural change of the realms, or how the Beasts of Chaos see it natural for the forces of order and civilization to be mutated. And then the Rot phrase are all about how the Beasts of Chaos very much want to spread that corruption and anarchy to the mortal realms. And then when we have the Slaanesh Slake phrase, it's very much a sort of a combination of all of them. Every desire that a Beast of Chaos ever had towards anarchy and corruption and change and bloodlust. The Slake phrase just heighten that sense of pleasure and enjoyment from it, that makes them want to do it again and again and again. So with that, that is going to be the great phrase and the great phrase of the Chaos Gods reviewed. Like I say, I can go more in depth later, but I think for now in this video that's fine. The next thing I want to talk about is something that, if you don't know what they are, you may be wondering why we mentioned the whole time, and that is the Herd Stones. So I want to explain what they are a little bit more, just so I can help you guys understand that they're not simply just a rock planted in the ground because it looks pretty. In fact, the Beasts of Chaos erect Herd Stones whenever they roam. These are made from warp-infused substances which are very dependent on the realm they are in. So, you know, realm of light in Hyesha might be glass or crystal. In the realm of, you know, Gaian, maybe a tree or some sort of plant. And then if it's in the realm of beasts, it could be a skull, for an example. These Herdstone is where they make sacrifices to Chaos and declare challenges against their own kin. So remember, sacrifices, you may think, oh, what, to a certain god, unless they're from one of those god-specific great phrases I mentioned before. When they sacrifice to Chaos, they sacrifice the Chaos energies as a whole. And then when they declare challenges against their kin, it's very much as, you know, might makes right. You know, the strongest leads the pack, so it's very much as simple as that. And these Herdstones often take the form of gigantic beasts with massive horns and a skull face with chaotic runes carved in their surfaces. Some of these Herdstones, which stand deep in the twisted wild places in the realms, are older than the age of myth. These such sculptures of chaos conduct and saturate in so much chaotic energy that for a mortal with a civilized intellectual mind to be in the mere presence of a Herdstone will soon find their sanity snapping and their mind gone, turning them into a primitive, mindless beast. And like I mentioned, the Herdstone is dedicated to not one Chaos God, but to Chaos as a whole, unless I say specifically dedicated to a certain great fray. However, the Chaos Gods have known to take great notice at these monuments and have channeled their own power through it. This could be in the form of tentacles coming from underneath the stone, or blood erupting from the eyes of the monument. Sometimes the beasts of chaos will accept these as a blessing and may themselves receive gifts from certain Chaos Gods. However, some beasts of chaos will tear down the corrupted Herdstones and kill their mutated kin, as they are seen as a disgrace to their dedication to chaos. So that kind of also leads me into what I wanted to say about why the Beasts of Chaos really are against dedicating themselves to certain Chaos Gods, or why most of them are. And that's just because the Beasts of Chaos see it as they have a duty, and that duty is to, like I said, bring their natural order of how they see things to the mortal realms as a whole. By going off and splitting into one of these other phrases that really support the Chaos Gods, you're sort of coming away from your purpose and you're limiting yourself into what you like. Like with Khorne, it's very much focused on, you know, the bloodshed. Well, what about all the other parts of anarchy that go with it? You're sort of depriving yourself from that, and you're taking yourself away from, you know, the purpose. And that's how the Beasts of Chaos view it. Obviously, the ones who join those dedicated gods don't think they're doing anything wrong. They just see it as, I will become more powerful if I do this, and I can, you know, carry out their own work more effectively, essentially. So it's all very much a bit of I'd say like a bit of, you know, of a civil war and stuff between the Beasts of Chaos, as they're not really fully united anyway. The only thing that unites them is their purpose. It's more of a disgust they have between each other. Okay, and then the last thing I kind of want to talk about is how other races view and interact with them. So coming from more the order side of things, the Beasts of Chaos, they are still the superstitious fear made manifest, and this is through fables based upon them. You know, as a mother may tell her child in a village, don't wander too deep into the forest and the outskirts of the village, or, you know, the beasts will take you. Very much things like that. Almost how we have in our own, you know, world. Each culture also gives them a different name. So you've got the things like the Hinterwellers, the Wild Walkers, the Soulless Ones, because, you know, it's not like they have the internet in the mortal realms where they can all connect and go, right, this is what we're going to label them. they all have different things, as they all look so different, as you've seen from the pictures earlier. The models what Simon's done, you get some that live in the sea, you get some that live in the sky, you get, standard ones. They all take different forms, so of course they would have different names. So a lot of common folk know them as raiders and terrorize entire villages with just a small pack of warriors. Now that's a bit of an interesting one as well, I put, because most times that's all the Beasts of Chaos are. They're just like small bands, raiding parties that go and sort of attack the back lines of the forces of order and not on the front lines. And that's why they are known as, like raiders and things that terrorize villages and towns. The reason why that is the case is because if there is ever a big enough force to destroy that town, that's what happens. The Beasts of Chaos will wipe out the existence of that town, and then there are no one left to remember them by and create these tales. And because the Beasts of Chaos do quite often take this raiding ambition stance, and that's more the Bray Herd than anything else, but they are the most numerous in the Beasts of Chaos, that means that they can be beaten essentially in an outright fight. If it was just like a plain desert, for example, no tricks, nothing like that, just a force of Beasts of Chaos versus Orc war clans as an example, chances are the Orc war clans would win and pass on exceptions. But the Beasts of Chaos, their biggest strength is they are one of the best races in the whole of Age of Sigmar that utilises terrain and tactics via that way, by ambushing, by knowing the landscape essentially, is what often wins them the battles. They could do things where they send a small force to attack a city of Sigmar, and then the cities of Sigmar go, this is ridiculous, and then they send their army out to deal with a small force of Beasts of Chaos. But the Beasts of Chaos are slowly leading them away from their city into the wild, deeper places, which give the Beasts of Chaos the advantage, and before you know it, that army from a city of Sigmar has been surrounded and slaughtered before they really knew what hit them, and they didn't know they were getting fallen and pushed into a trap. So essentially, they don't really fight fair. Don't get me wrong, like we saw earlier in another story, you may get some war herds that have dedicated themselves to Khorne, and they're pretty much, straight for it. They'll hit you in the face with their horns or axes. They're not going to be doing too much ambushing, but you can actually have Bulgors, Minotaurs and stuff in this army that can ambush, which is quite fun on the tabletop. Okay, and then the other things, like, so where you think like, all these smaller things like they're into ambush and all that, well, you can't really ambush with a massive giant or something like that. Well, really, what brings the monsters of the Beasts of Chaos to battle? It's not the Beasts of Chaos are saying to them, can you join us in this fight, please? It's more by the sound of battle that draws these beasts and monstrosities out from the wilds, and that is what gets these behemoths to fight alongside the Beasts of Chaos. Things like, Chaos Giant, Chimeras, Jabberslice, Cockatrice, also things like Chaos Warhounds, a little bit smaller, but still, that's sort of things that come from the wild, Chimeras. Really, the list goes on and on of all these bestial creatures that will come to aid the Beasts of Chaos in their bloodbath of slaughter and anarchy. But once the battle is over, the interesting thing with the Beasts of Chaos is that they actually leave the pure taint of chaos in the lands where they've been raiding. So we take examples from some forces of order. Let's say the forces of order have pushed the Beasts of Chaos out of the land. They repel the invaders. Yay! However, their farms may start sprouting a bestial plants with like tentacles, Venus Flytrap sort of vibe, Jumanji sort of style. Also things in like the kingdoms of the undead, they may find their fortifications crumble by chaotic ruins that have been left uncroached there. And then also destruction, which may find that the beasts they hunt and tame grow to monstrous size and proportions and devour their until recent hunters and masters. So they do have this after effect, and remember, like, they could be causing all this, additional problems with, like Cabbacious, eating people, fortifications of the undead crumbling, and like I said, this example of the destruction, their beasts eating them. So that essentially all these other races have got to deal with all these leftover problems, and then while they're doing that, the Beasts of Chaos are going to come for round two. And these kingdoms, war clans, are really kind of weaker than they were the first time around. So it could also be another attack to the Beast of Chaos, or it could just be the unnatural nature of chaos. Right, okay, so with that, I am going to end this video. So this video has been a bit of a long one, surprisingly, to be fair, because this is nearly like 4,000 words. I thought it was going to be a little bit longer, but I'm quite happy with that. It felt more concise. What I would ask, if you could please let me know down below if you felt like this video was structured a bit better, because like I said, with all the notes and stuff I read, and it's not like a script or anything, it's just notes I use to help myself along throughout the video. And essentially, by me doing the notes, also get all my knowledge for the lore, for example, from the battle tome, and then I try and reword it to make it a bit more easier to understand, especially for newer players. That's what I hope anyway. So if you let me know your thoughts on that down below, and let me know if you think it's worth the extra time to do. And I also wanted to do a bit of love for the Beast of Chaos, because they don't always get a lot of stuff. I don't find many lore stuff on them. They've got 2+ Tough has done some lore stuff for them on YouTube. And I think Avavandus, is that his name as well? He does some good lore videos. I think he's covered the Beast of Chaos. But they're quite, I would say they're more shorter videos, as I want to also explore, the individual, factions within the Beast of Chaos in their like army review videos as well. So I'll cover some lore there. Like I say, this is the start of the Beast of Chaos series. We traditionally start with the lore video, and then the next video will be like, don't quote me on this, but it'll be things like allegiance abilities, and then it'll be like probably a video on the Bray Herd, and then a video on the War Herd, and then a video on etc, 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 Thunder Scorn, monsters, everything else. So it will be as in depth as I have done for things like Making of Nurgle, Gloomspite by Gitz, Nighthawk, just to give them the love that I think they deserve, because they are a really interesting army. And I'll be completely honest with you, before I actually read into all this lore, I wasn't as interested in this army as I am now. I didn't feel like it was too interesting, the lore-wise anyway, because to be honest, I just looked at them as the Beastmans of what they were before and the world that was. I didn't really think this book would have so much knowledge in it. And I tell you what, this book is, I would say, like I mentioned at the start of the video, similar to Age of Sigmar. This book is a bit of a turning point in the sense of it adds a lot of flavour and knowledge to the Mortal Realms as a whole as well, which I think is very cool. And it also does a great job of sort of like defining what chaos is in the Mortal Realms. So definitely a good book. Right, so like I say, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe and comment down below, as that massively does help the channel. It's absolutely free for you guys to do so. I would like to shout out to the amazing patrons I have, who do a fantastic job as always supporting this channel and really help keeping me going. So thank you very much for that, guys. What I'm going to do from now on is I'm going to have your names on the end of the video as well. So we've got, a nice little board so we can see who's supporting the channel the most. I think would be nice. And yeah, so with that, guys, thank you very much for watching. Remember to stay safe in these uncertain times. Get your Beast of Chaos started, building, painted up. Maybe hopefully get a game in not so long. And I look forward to reviewing them in the rest of this army series. So, guys, remember, until next time, remember, Nagash is all, and all is one in Nagash.